Hello, and welcome to McMath Expo Philosophy Lessons. For our first one, this will be the introduction to the Republic, along with a brief explanation.
I went down to the Piraeus yesterday with Glaucon, son of Ariston, to pray to the goddess, and at the same time I wanted to observe how they will put on the festival, since they were now holding it for the first time. Now, in my opinion, the procession of the native inhabitants was fine, but the one the Thracians conducted was no less fitting a show. After we had prayed and looked on, we went off toward town.
Catching sight of us from afar as we were pressing homewards, Polymachus, son of Cephalus, ordered his slave boy to run after us and order us to wait for him. The boy took hold of my cloak from behind and said, "Polymachus orders you to wait." As I turned around and asked him where his master was, "He is coming up from behind," he said. "Just wait." "Of course we'll wait," said Glaucon. A moment later, Polymachus came along with Adamantius, Glaucon's brother, Niceratus, son of Nicias, and some others, apparently from the procession. Polymachus said, "Socrates, I guess you two are hurrying to get away to town." "That's not a bad guess," I said. "Well," he said, "do you see how many of us there are?" "Of course." "Well then," he said, "either prove stronger than these men, or stay here." "Isn't there still one other possibility?" I said. "Our persuading you that you must let us go?" "Could you really persuade," he said, "if we don't listen?" "There's no way," said Glaucon. "Well then, think it over, bearing in mind we won't listen." Then Adamantus said, "Is it possible you don't know that at sunset there will be a torch race on horseback for the goddess?" "On horseback," I said. "That is novel. Will they hold torches and pass them to one another while racing the horses, or what do you mean?" "That's it," said Polymachus. "And besides, they'll put on an all-night festival that will be worth seeing. We'll get up after dinner and go to see it. There we'll be together with many of the young men and we'll talk. So stay and do as I tell you." And Glaucon said, "It seems we must stay." "Well, if it is so resolved," I said, "that's how we must act." Then we went to Polymachus's home. Even though that introduction was short, there's actually a lot of philosophy going on in it, and I'll talk about some of it here. First of all, Socrates and Glaucon are on their way back from the Piraeus, which is the dock, to the main town of Athens. This would have been a good spot for the Republic to take place because there's a lot of exchange of different ideas at the dock and a lot of different cultures. You'll see more of why that's true as you read further into Book 1. But for now, let's take a look at the introduction. Socrates notes that the procession of the Athenians was just as good as the one of the Thracians. This is classic Socrates. Most people would pick a side. Can you imagine going as a Dallas Cowboys fan to the game and saying that the Cowboys did well, but the Atlanta Falcons did equally as well? Most people wouldn't do that, but Socrates is able to see the good in both sides. Another thing that's worth noting is that when Polymachus' slave comes up to Socrates and asks him to wait, Socrates is not the one that responds. Glaucon actually is. It's interesting that this whole conversation in the Republic takes place, and we don't know whether or not Socrates even wanted to go. Of course, Socrates and Glaucon do stay, and when they meet up with Polymachus, we see one of Plato's criticisms of democracy. Keep in mind that Athens had just lost the Peloponnesian War. Plato thought there must have been a better way to do business and government, and he didn't think democracy was necessarily the best way to get things done. His criticism can be seen whenever Polymachus says, "Prove stronger than these men, or stay here." Basically, what's happening here is saying that if you can get enough people to believe a certain way, then you have to do what they say. What's also interesting is Socrates actually offers up a pretty good alternative and convincing them that they should be able to go home. There's more criticism here where Polymachus says, that they won't listen, so there's really no point in trying to reason with them. Again, this is another criticism of direct democracy in Athens at the time, where if you could get enough people to go along with something, no amount of reason could change the law or change their minds. At this point, Socrates, Glaucon, Polymachus, and the rest of them head back to Polymachus' house, and that's where the rest of the text of the Republic takes place. And we'll pick it up next time with Cephalus' view of justice.